Why was the skeleton so bad at math? He couldn't find his radius. Why don't skeletons fight each other? Because they don't have the guts. What do you call a skeleton that isn't moving? A skeleton off. And that's my pun allowance for the year. Look, normally I hate a good pun, that kind of joke, not for me. But skeletons get a pass. They just do. How can I help it? Skeletons are just humorous. But seriously, it's kind of a weird thing, right? How skeletons have just turned into these goofy guys. I mean, skeletons are like the quintessential symbol of death, about as serious as you can get. For centuries, they served as memento mori, a reminder that death is inevitable. In some ways, they still do. They're just not as concerned with all that doom and gloom anymore. They're less harbingers of misfortune and more the theater kids of the underworld. You kind of see this everywhere. Jack Skellington, Sans and Papyrus, Hector from Coco. This, I think, is what people tend to think these days when they think skeleton. They pop off their heads to recite Shakespeare. They sing and dance. They're always telling bad skeleton jokes. You can even trace the idea of dancing skeletons through animation history. Fleischer Studios' Minnie the Moocher in 1932. Disney's Skeleton Dance in 1929. The Lumiere Brothers animation, The Joyous Skeleton, dates all the way back to 1898. And it isn't just media, either. Humans are partying with skeletons all the time in real life. I think of the Katrinas and Kalakas on the Day of the Dead, colorful skeletons commemorating the lives of deceased loved ones. I think of front yards on Halloween full of wacky plastic skeletons, some of them I've heard up to 12 feet tall. I think of the endless memes dedicated to them, from the Doot GIF to the Skeleton War. The skull emoji means laughter now. I laughed so hard at that, I died. Skeletons are just wacky guys now. It's what they are. But you kinda gotta wonder, how did they get there? How is it that skeletons, the actual remains of human bodies, are so far from grave? Really quick, before the video starts, I just need to acknowledge that the video you're watching would not exist without the creativity of our supporters. One person in particular, a supporter who goes by the name of Auto Guy, made a piece of art so exciting to us, it spawned this entire video idea. You'll hear more about that later. Thanks for sharing, Auto Guy. If you didn't know, this is just something we do. All of our supporters are invited to come chat with us about the show and the episodes we're currently working on. It's honestly a ridiculous amount of fun and such a great way to find new ideas. If you want to join the conversation and maybe spawn your own Tale Foundry video topics, visit thetalefoundry.com/support. Hope to see you there. Now, on to the video. In 14th century Europe, death was sort of a cultural obsession. I can't really say I blame them. This was right after the bubonic plague. Pretty much everyone, no matter their social status, was thinking about their mortality. And when you look at a lot of the art from that era, it shows. There's an artistic motif called the Danse Macabre that showed up everywhere back then. It shows up in paintings, murals, poetry. People may have even reenacted it at costume balls. It persisted as a popular theme in classical music centuries later. You might be familiar with Camille Saint-Saëns' famous symphonic poem about it. The Danse Macabre depicts death as a skeleton, leading people of all stations and backgrounds into an eternal dance. The procession includes kings, priests, peasants alike, and none, no matter how powerful, are able to escape it. Of all the work within this motif, Hans Holbein's woodcut series is probably the most well-known. It's a collection of 41 scenes which took him nearly 3 years to complete. Each picture in the series shows death courting a different victim, enticing them to join the dance. There's a dark sort of irony to a lot of them, a twisted sense of medieval-era humor. One of them shows death skewering a knight on his own lands. Another shows a physician unable to cure his own final illness. In perhaps the most striking of all these pieces, even the Pope himself is doomed to hell, a punishment for his greed and corruption. To medieval audiences, the message was clear. Everyone eventually will die, so you'd better take the chance you have to live morally enough or suffer the eternal consequences. The Danse Macabre may have been a product of its era, but that doesn't mean it's gone away. It just looks different now. For one, the skeletons don't drag people down to their grave anymore. Instead, they party with other skeletons. Even after all this time, they still love music. Bone Jangles, the skeleton guy in the movie Corpse Bride, you know the one, introduces the land of the dead through a jazzy number. In Coco, Hector sings and plays the guitar. Sans punctuates his puns with a trombone. These skeletons are still skeletons. They're still here to remind you that you're going to die one day. It's inevitable. It happens to everyone. But they also implicitly ask the question, what are you going to do before then? If your time on Earth is finite, how are you going to use it? They're just not interested in the ominous implications of memento mori like you see in Holbein's work. They aren't trying to warn you of what could happen after death. Instead, they're saying the opposite. Memento vivere. Remember to live. All right, bear with me here. When you look at the way that these skeletons live, doesn't it make you feel just a little envious? I mean, they seem to have so much more fun than all of you. Here they are dancing and partying and playing music all the time. And here you are, working 9-to-5s and cycling through bills and emails and grocery runs. A skeleton is always grinning. Sometimes you do that. Most of the time there's flesh in the way. Why bother with all that tedium, the day-to-day grind, the mortal coil? If you're just going to die anyway, what's the point of it all? Philosophers and theologists have spent centuries trying to answer this big meaning of life question. I can't say whether any of them have definitively solved it, but there is one work in particular that I personally find very compelling. Albert Camus' famous essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, argues that there is no point. The piece is about how people respond to the inevitable realization that life has no meaning, how they respond when they find out that none of the big questions come with satisfactory answers. Camus calls this meaningless existence the absurd, and it can be a scary thing to confront, world-shattering. If you feel like your life is meaningless, that you'll never understand your significance in the grand scheme of the universe, what do you do? How do you deal with that? Camus argues that people answer that question in a variety of ways. Mostly, he says, they make some kind of appeal. An appeal to rationality, an appeal to faith. Even philosophy is, in its way, a form of appeal. People find ways to convince themselves that their existence has some greater purpose and that they know what it is. They try to satisfy those burning questions, all of that meaning of life stuff. They spend their lives in pursuit of whatever they feel their calling is. This pursuit of meaning inevitably comes to define the individual. They become whatever they feel their purpose is. What started as an appeal becomes a tidy package to hold together all the messy, complicated innards. An identity, a face to see when they look in the mirror, a skin. But according to Camus, those appeals still won't give you a real answer, just a consolation. Why are you here? What will you become? What happens after you die? To Camus, the answers on offer are all immaterial. Maybe you simply don't get to know these things. It might seem a little nihilistic, but in Camus' view, that's actually a good thing. Maybe life is meaningless, Camus says, but that doesn't mean it's worthless. You can make your own meaning by embracing the absurd. You accept that you'll never fully know and live without appeal. In the medieval era, the philosophy of memento mori was about morality, trying to live as good as possible. The idea was that one ought to spend their life striving for perfect morality. But maybe that doesn't always work out. Everyone has different ideas of what goodness really is, and yours might just not be the same as those medieval artists. So, maybe it's more reasonable to embrace the absurd, to live as well as possible, to structure your life around what you find fulfilling, instead of trying to live up to some kind of ideal of what life should mean. Memento vivere. Skeletons shouldn't be able to walk around. They shouldn't be able to dance. They have none of the things that the living value, including organs. What does status, money, the meaning of life matter to them? They're dead. And yet, they dance. They dance more often and more easily and more comfortably than humans do. I suppose it makes sense when you think about it. It would be easier to dance without all that skin in the way. All right, let's address the 12-foot-tall plastic skeleton in the room. There's an obvious way to become a skeleton, one that might seem like, an intuitive response to the meaninglessness of life. That is not what we're advocating here, obviously. Embracing the absurd is about living, not dying. That's actually the major argument in the myth of Sisyphus. Camus sees an absurd life as the ultimate revolt against the meaninglessness of life. The whole point of these joyous skeletons is that they're alive, even though it doesn't make sense for them to be. Their existence isn't just absurd, they thrive in absurdity. This is the part where I talk about the movie Corpse Bride. I promise this is relevant. It opens on a bleak 19th century town where everyone does everything according to plan. They go about their daily lives like clockwork. They live by strict rules and engage in repetitive tasks for seemingly no reason. It's a mechanical, lifeless place where people are fully defined by their function. The main character, Victor, isn't really like that. He has a difficult time doing things according to plan. He's engaged to Victoria Everglot, an arranged marriage that neither of them had any say in. To his credit, Victor tries to follow the rules. It never really seems to go well for him, but he does. He can't remember his wedding vows, he accidentally ruins the rehearsal, and while at least Victoria seems to like him, her parents really don't. I'm not going to explain the whole plot of the movie, but the major plot point that gets things rolling is that, while trying to practice his vows in the forest, Victor accidentally marries a corpse, after which he's whisked away to the land of the dead. Whatever plan Victor was trying to follow, this obviously wasn't part of it. Remember what I said about making appeals? How people try to find some way to repel the meaninglessness of life? In a way, you could say Victor was doing exactly that. His appeal was to ritual, society, social order. Follow the rules, do the right things, try to act how you should, and you'll find your place in all of it eventually. But then, he dies, and the rules change completely. Okay, that's not entirely true. He's still alive, but he visits the land of death. And what he finds is the exact opposite to the land of the living. It doesn't operate according to plan at all. It's a vibrant, fun, chaotic place. It's full of dancing, wisecracking skeletons and zombies. There's no clear structure here, no rules or expectations to follow. All of this is, of course, terrifying to him at first. Unfortunately for him, death is not something you can simply run from. But before long, he realizes that he doesn't actually want to run. Unlike in the land of the living, he feels free here. He feels himself. He embraces the absurd and, very literally, parties with the skeletons. It's here that Victor realizes all the social rules and expectations he tried so hard to follow were meaningless. He wasn't following all of them because he wanted to. He was doing all of that because he felt he had to. It took death to make him feel alive for the first time. In the end, Victor doesn't marry his corpse bride. They both recognize that it's not his time to die, and he returns to the land of the living. The difference is, he's actually ready to live this time, to experience life in all its messy, unpredictable, meaningless, absurdity. Skeletons have no skin, obviously, but in a metaphorical sense, too. There's no face, no facade, no expectation or routine to follow, no appeal. As the ones in Corpse Bride sing, death may be inevitable, but look, they're experiencing it in real time and they love it. Without their skin, without standards to identify themselves by, skeletons are free. I've said a lot about skeletons and music. It's like their whole thing. It goes all the way back to the Danse Macabre. Maybe that association is there just because it's absurd. The dead don't play trombones or xylophones or violins. For that matter, they don't dance or paint or make spaghetti. But maybe the skeletons aren't the absurd thing here. Maybe it's the art. Here, look at this. It's an entire tabletop RPG campaign based on the Danse Macabre. It's called The Great Skelejam. There's some seriously original horror in here and several moments that made me laugh out loud. A member of our Discord community, Auto Guy, organized the whole thing and did a huge amount of art for it. He did an incredible job, and so did the 7 other people who collaborated on it. It's up on the internet for free. The Great Skelejam is for everyone. This is something I keep seeing with skeletons. The music video for Will Wood's Memento Mori is full of skeletons, drawn in the unique styles of several animators, who all participated just for fun. Disney's Skeleton Dance only exists because the music director, Carl Stalling, had been determined to know what a dancing skeleton looks like since childhood. The webcomic Helvetica, which follows a cast of skeletal characters in the afterlife, was created by a single artist, J.N. Weedle. It ran for nearly 6 years. These projects were all labors of love, created just for the sake of creating. They were made because people wanted to make them, and also because skeletons are cool. Skeletons live without appeal. Get it? Without appeal? But the philosophical thing too. They don't need a purpose. I think that's why they're like that. They make art and play music, even though it doesn't make sense for them to. They party and tell bad jokes. They don't need to worry when things don't go according to plan because they don't have a plan. They're dead. They live to be dead. And, of course, you can always join them. Yep, you can be a skeleton too. All you have to do is take off your skin. You know, one interesting thing about skeletons, they may be dead, they may not have all the baggage of flesh, but they're still human, which, in a world increasingly beset by AI slop, is a really important distinction. I don't know, more and more I'm just feeling like the internet isn't a great place for creators. It just feels really bad to be posting videos alongside soulless, generative garbage. I hate having to sift my way through it whenever I want to find genuine art. I just want there to be a place I can go to find real stuff by real people again, you know? It's not a solution for the entirety of the internet's bleak future, but at least for video content, we have sort of created something like this already. We got together with a bunch of other creators who were also sick of the abusive landscape of content creation on the internet and made a video platform for real art made by real humans. It's called Nebula, and in an increasingly enshittified world, let me tell you, it is a breath of fresh air. It's also just the best way to watch our stuff, ours and a ton of other creators. See, the money Nebula makes from subscriptions goes back to us, the creators, and allows us to do all kinds of amazing things. All our videos go up there early, without ads. We made a whole Foundry original documentary series over there called Worldsmiths. Creators have hosted game shows, directed feature-length films, piloted entirely new studio productions, all through Nebula. As a matter of fact, not long ago we brought our friend Frankie from the channel A Bit Frank over to Nebula, And she's already made what is probably one of my favorite Nebula original series so far, A Bit Obscure. A travel show where she goes around and explores the weird, wondrous, and spooky. Radioactive hot springs, forests overrun with jack-o'-lanterns, abandoned truck graveyards. It's insanely fun, and we're legitimately so proud of her for making it. So, that's my pitch. A platform without all the garbage, where the creators are all set up to make the best stuff they possibly can. If you love that idea as much as we do, come join us on Nebula. Normally it's around $6 a month, but if you use our link, go.nebula.tv/TaleFoundry, you can get it for just $36 a year, which is only $3 a month. Or if you understandably don't want to subscribe to another service, you could also just get a lifetime membership. That's right, that's something they actually offer. Normally it's $500, but with our link, it comes all the way down to $300. Pay one time and then never again. No matter how big Nebula gets, how prestigious its projects, you will always have access. Again, visit go.nebula.tv/TaleFoundry to get Nebula for just $3 a month or $300 one time for your entire life. If you're sick of all the AI slop everywhere and you just want to be around real creators making real art, come try Nebula. I promise you, it is exactly as good as it sounds. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next week. Bye!